Welcome back to Clash of Wills for a third attempt at recording this without my phone disconnecting. I got my cap a couple days ago, a little earlier in the event this time, so I figured I could show that and maybe help out. Turn on all of the mods, and then this is the team I am using. Esther was EX2 when I originally capped, but I've just since upgraded to EX3 with the login shard tickets. And we'll look at gear afterwards, but just get into it once things load. Both sides doing their autocasts. So now Ling is our death provoker. She has the Morgana rod in both forms for lots of passive morale gain, and then is mostly just re-raising herself each turn with the skill from Phoenix, and that way no one else has to worry about re-raising her. Runda is our evade tank, also has some resists, so he'll just pretty much be keeping the party nice and safe for the most part. Sylvie does her usual defensive buffs and stuff, and is also a big offensive buffer because we're using Earth on this team. So we'll start applying that. Kaito will mostly be spamming his breaks and also doing blinding. It's not important for the first couple turns, but we'll get that up later. Esther was just starting in shift form for auto buffing, but will be staying in base form for the whole fight and just doing her usual chain and setup. And Skye will also be setting up. She could immediately start stacking, but I'm just having her base chain on turn 1, A, to sync up with Esther so they're always LBing at the same time, and B, for the turn 1 seal of Wind and Earth. On all of the subsequent turns, Runda should be handling the Wind and Earth seal because he has a Blizzard Orb and the Elemental Weapon for countering, and that should count for the seal, and also help with the MP drain, but it does add a bit of time to watching all of these animations each turn, which is a bit unfortunate. So we'll just let him do his thing for a bit. Now this turn tends to be quite painful, so Runda's going to LB now. If he did it on turn 1, the boss kind of gradually reduces physical met durations, so that would have been gone by now if he didn't. Sylvie can just do some more defensive buffs. Actually, rather than reapply the elements, it's annoying, a bit annoying with this fight because you want her physical met from the left skill, but the wind and earth buffs from the right skill, so you kind of can't just stick to one. But we'll have her buff up. Ling will do her usual. We unfortunately have to watch the full shift animation each turn because we didn't get the update that let us make it faster. And that shifting each turn also is why she can't just hit reload, but it doubles the morale gain she gets from the rod each turn. So this isn't going to do much damage because the mitigations are up, but it's just to, you know, start stacking Skye's LB and chipping away at things. Dies again, gets that morale tick as she gets up. Runda takes things very well with his LB up. Now, the main concern, even with Ling's rod going off each turn, is morale is still a little tight on this team. I think when I got capped, I was only at 180 on the turn 10 where I finished, but it should still be enough damage even with it not quite maxed out. Gosh, Runda really likes to do these counters. gonna slow down the video a lot. Okay, turn 3. Runda can put up his SLB because it's best to just do the LB and the SLB as much as possible with those physical duration reducers. Sylvie can again kind of generate more morale and let's just do that one and these two to cure off the poison as well. And we'll do usual. It sort of gets a bit repetitive. This isn't too complicated of a turn rotation. Break and Kaito. Actually, rather than, because we want to blind this turn, so rather than worry about the better breaks because they should still be up from the LB, we're going to have 3 50% chances to blind from Kaito. Looks like we got it on the first one there, so that's fine. Esther just does her usual refill. Skye goes back to base form to make sure her gauge is charged. It was up anyway, but might as well be consistent. Oh, that was a gravity attack. I think most of my members have a chance to evade that, but obviously a couple of them didn't there. But because it's a 50%, it's always 50% HP, so it's not going to kill anyone. But because this team doesn't have much healing, it can kind of chip things down a bit over time, but usually it seems like things are alright, which is good. Now this turn, we're going to be setting up for our first burst to hit the threshold on 6. So this is the turn we want Sylvie to start stacking it up. Gravel Egg, or the Earth Blessing rather, that does the stacking amp. And the other thing we're going to want to do this turn is try get our chain score, because our main burst is only 62 hits or whatever, so it's going to be a bit janky, but we'll get 2 boltings from Sylvie and the Earth Blessing. We will get 3 boltings from Runda, because the rest of his stuff should still be up. 30 from Kaito, 30 from Esther, 2 from Skye, just because she needs to keep stacking. And then Ling will do her usual thing, because she has to on every turn that there's going to be a death, which is everything but the threshold turn and the kill turn. So we'll have her do that. I need a couple more chaining targets. I'll just move a couple of those over. And then hopefully this will hit about 103, 104 from memory. I think that was exactly 100 even. Oh, what? No, 106. Just missed the last few numbers. Okay. Runda just dodges things most on this turn because there's no accuracy up, which is nice. Make sure he stays healthy. Now he does all his counters. And now on my original cap clear, I think for Sylvie I used this turn for her shift LB to kind of maximize this first burst, but it's not really necessary because the second one is the one we're going to be really trying to cap on anyway with the higher morale and whatnot. So I might this time instead put her back in base form to just try and generate a bit more morale and with her defensive buffs instead. Once we get to it. Come on, little robot, that's enough missiles. Come on, Ling. Another re-raise for Ling. She must be pretty sick of dying by the end of this fight, but it is her job. I think this time we'll go for the elements. We'll do both of these. And we're not currently poisoned, so we'll do the barrier. Runda, I think, will reapply his cover this turn, because that's probably close to running out. Just do some other things, but he should be pretty safe from now on. From my experience, turn 2 was the main dangerous one. Kaito will make sure he keeps up decent breaks and do another couple of these. It's already blinded, so it doesn't matter too much this turn, but I think it also fills a bit of morale, so that helps. Esther do a usual refill, Skye base form, just throw out some skills. The Skye's using a great sword and just piggybacking off Esther's weapon and peril, so her own one doesn't actually matter, but we may as well just use it, because why not? Okay. Death, Skye mana drained, Runda taking some big hits this turn, but he should still be safe. Yeah, and even though we don't have much healing, from experience it tends to last the rest of the fight. It has HP. The real concern is how long will the fight last through these counter animations. The things we go through for tactical advantages. That wasn't too bad. So now the third and final tier of Earth Blessings Amp should have procced. So Esther will chain. This is going to be sort of our first burst that will hit the threshold. Runda can SLB to just be safe. Now, because we're going to hit the threshold, this is the one turn that there's not going to be a death. So Ling can finally do something else. And the whole reason that I brought her was for this beast killer buff, because we don't otherwise have one on the team, and that was important for getting enough damage on that second burst. And then she can just add a bit of extra morale still. Sylvie on this turn is going to do the insect killer buff. Where is it? Beat an insect. I think it'll be slightly better on Esther than Skye because of the lower morale. And I don't think anything else is too important on this turn, really. We might as well reapply Gravel Egg while we're here. Or, actually no, I'm going to save that for after we redo the Earth Blessing. Gonna misclicking all of these. So I think for Sylvie's other two actions, she can just fill some morale as well. And now Kaito didn't have his LB gauge filled until we used Runda's SLB, but if it still wasn't filled for any reason, we've got him on the Hyo card, so he has an alternative Extreme Nova chain that doesn't use his gauge, so he's got that for if he needs it. But this will be our first burst to hit the threshold. Should do a pretty decent portion of the final cap damage, 1800, and then the cap, hopefully cap 1, will have some better buffs and, you know, better morale as well for better mods. So this is going to be the last turn that Sylvie spends in base form, so we want to cure that, and I'm going to re-put up both of these as well, even though it might be nice to have the regen too, but I think those three are probably the most important, to have both the resists and the mitigation up long term. Runda doesn't have his gauge full, so he can just cover, protect Gert, and laser. Now, Ling, rather than staying in shift form, because she started the turn in it, we want to switch to base form for the extra morale, and then because she's in base form, she can use this to re-raise the whole team instead of just herself. So that's a slight advantage there. Not a big deal either way. Kaito, do your usual thing. Oh, and also because of the threshold, the boss got a bunch of buffs and mitigation this turn. If I can actually long tap on the boss. There we go. So he's got a bunch of buffs and mitigation. Now the mitigation can be dispelled, so we're going to use Crashing Wave for that, and then the attack and defense buffs we are going to remove with Unpredictable Tide. And the main one, like, they will expire naturally by the time we next do our main burst, but the main one I want to get rid of here is that attack buff. And then we'll just do a blind chance here, which seems to have been successful. Not 100% sure how important it is this time, but we'll keep going. And then, yep, Sylvie and Skye just do their usual refills. Oh, and they're not imbued with Earth this turn. But Skye had her all elements weapon, so sealing, because I'm not actually sure if Runda counted anything on the threshold. So yeah, it's probably good that Skye sealed that. Now the gravity hitting people, you can see Kaito's health is actually getting a little low, but he shouldn't be taking any more damage. Runda's also down to 10k, but he should have Reraise for a few turns, so we'll hopefully be safe. Oh, and speaking of it, I realise we haven't actually been using any of the morale actions, and a few of those would probably help out a bit as well. So we may as well put some of those up this turn. Now the first one we don't want to use because this dispels some effects. It's not just a status heal, as I rudely found out on an earlier attempt. But we'll restore some health, put up some barriers and defense and spirit buffs. And doesn't have his LB up, so again can just kind of cover, put up those weaker mitigations as a backup. Sylvie needs to start the Earth stack again, and then we may as well. I'm going to put up Paladin's defense just to have some mirages on people, might help a little, and then a bit more morale. Ling goes back to the shift, re-raise and die rotation. Kaito can start putting up his better debuffs, or weapons and elements. Not super important, but it helps his own damage a little bit. We'll just get up another blind chance, even though he's already blinded. There's a bit of redundancy, but oh well. Oh, oh, never mind. For a second I was like, oh wait, Kaito was supposed to chain this turn. But then I realised we don't actually want to chain this turn, because we don't want to accidentally kill it too early, which almost happened on one of my previous attempts. So we'll just do Unchained Skye and Esther here, who will do a nice, safely low amount of damage. Now the damage over time is kind of hurting. And one thing about the damage over time... Ooh. Okay. This didn't happen last time. Let's see if we can recover, because Sylvie is set up as a backup provoke tank here, which I think helps a lot. So she kind of raises and re-raises everyone up there. And Ling had guts there, as you might have seen. That was mainly to have her not die from the damage over time, but it also kind of helped there, I think. But hopefully, thanks to Sylvie, everything is safe. Now, on my original clear, no one but Ling actually died, so that was a bit scary for a second, but just have Ling re-raise again, run to SLB for those good mitigations. Though actually, I'm not sure he's covering anymore, because his preemptive cover is only start of battle, but I don't really want to restart the whole thing now, so we'll find out what happens with that. Sylvie can do the LB next turn, and do the insect killers and stuff this turn, because that way we benefit from the morale gain of I've got your back. Just going to go on Skye to give her a better LB damage buff. Put beat an insect on Esther. It's probably actually slightly more efficient on Skye, but oh well. And then Graveleg will just make sure everyone's imbued. these two do the usual. Skye, I forgot to do this for the first threshold burst. Not that it was necessary, but Skye has Tiger's Spirit to use this turn. And Kaito probably wants to blind. It also break this turn. So we'll go with Deep Submersion and 2 destabilizings. The Weapon Imperils and Element Imperils will all last long enough, as will the 90% defense break. Now hopefully everyone survives this turn. Oh, Runda didn't counter, so there was no seal. So I think it may have just stat buffed itself a bunch. This hasn't quite gone according to plan, but we'll see if it works. Because I have a feeling you now have, yes, a defense buff, which is a bit concerning. So Sylvie would do her LB. Ling would Beast Killer. With morale, I guess, though. Oh. And now I've just misclicked Esther. You know what? Let's come back and... Okay, we're back. I'm not sure exactly when that cut off, but let's go through the motions of what this turn was supposed to be, even if it's not actually gonna cap, because the defense and spirit buff is up right now when it wasn't supposed to be, because I screwed up something in the last couple turns. But to be honest, I'm too tired to redo this whole thing again. So yeah, Ling Beast Killer buffs this turn. Sylvie does her stat and LB mod boosts. And then Kaito, Esther, and Skye chain it up. We can also get the 400% stat buff. But I think Sylvie does 400 anyway from her LB. And then we'll see how much this does with the buff up. But it should be about 3 billion without the buff from experience. 1.7. Oh well. We can pretend that was a cap because, you know, I have the rank 1 and that's basically the exact same stuff that I was doing for that. But I obviously messed up some sequence around turn 8 or 9 and died unexpectedly, didn't seal. But the team works at least. Oh dear. I'm very good at this trial recording thing. There is no problems at all with this setup. Anyway, we will be back for something later. See, look, rank 1, it's all fine. Trust me. Bye. Actually, I decided I wasn't satisfied with that ending, so while I didn't want to completely re-record the entire clear, we are back on turn 10 with things done actually properly, so there was no deaths other than the expected Ling ones this time, just by kind of retiming Runda's SLB a bit, and not putting as much effort into the first threshold hitting burst, because it didn't really matter, so that let sort of Sylvie maintain defensive stuff more safely. But anyway, we can do our actual burst now. So Sylvie did her killer buffs last turn, and the big LB damage buff on Skye, and we've got the third tier of Earth Blessing again, same as last time. So Sylvie LB, Ling's Beast Killer buff, and then we should be ready to actually cap this time. Understands. And you know what, Runda, you've been very helpful, so you can show off your big face one last time. Runda's a good lad. And now this time, we should get a proper cap in rank 1. All our debuffs are applied. It's just accuracy buff. Okay, so put everything up nicely. And bam. Now we should see around 3 billion-ish this time. Like 2.8 to 3 is the range I'm expecting. There we go, 3 billion. So now we'll get the actual rank 1 score, and I can be a little more satisfied with this attempt. I can also check the damage breakdown this time. Esther ended up doing a bit more than Skye, probably because she kind of scales better on the lower morale turns. Skye might have done more on that very final burst though. And there we go, the 1.12 of a perfect score. And we didn't get our third ticket, but I will. Anyway, hope that was a somewhat helpful rank 1 for a tank clear without Chizuru or Wylk. And like the Sylvie counter build wasn't important there, even though it came in when it messed up on the previous attempt. Anyway, bye for real this time. God damn it, I forgot about the gear. How many endings is this video gonna have? Anyway, Ling is passive provoker number 1. The main thing is that upgraded Morgana rod to get lots of morale every turn. She's also got a source of guts to potentially, if she takes the damage over time with no mitigations and stuff, it could risk one-shotting her, so the guts just is safety against that. Same in both forms, bit of resist and stuff, but it was mostly not very necessary, and I haven't upgraded my second ring yet into any of the specific ones, but she's just got that on for another 100 per turn. Sylvie was set up as a sort of secondary evade provoker, with a little bit of counter from the one blizzard orb for emergencies. When things go correctly, it's not necessary, but as we saw on the first attempt, kind of helpful to have in the backup. Oh, Ling also has my one Sylvie card for, again, a bit more morale. No one was really conveniently dual wielding to double the gains from that though, and I don't have any of the other morale cards. Runda, mostly bulky, some earth and wind resists, evade, and one blizzard orb and the puppy's paintbrush to do counter sealing and counter MP healing. So he's just got not really worrying about the resists too much. Kaito was mostly just damage focus, really, a bit of auto cast stuff in the base form. Oh, didn't mean to have that. And then shift form, just geared up pretty well. He's not quite capped because he's kind of tertiary damage and not so easy, but he's got 300 beast and 250 insect, so he got pretty close. And then the main damage dealers, Esther's shift, as I said earlier, just has a bit of auto buffing stuff, and technically had a sealing weapon, but we never needed it. And then base form has a couple weird accessories to kind of get the killers done, but the Godable capped on everything. Was a bit low on damage in LB when I attack in LB when I used Kaito's card the first time, but it was still enough. But as I said, now I've just upgraded to her own card. And then Skye gears base form had that sealing, and again a bit of auto buffing. Tyva Spirit for that extra mod boost. And then shift form is damage with greatsword build, helps her cap LB as well as use this as weapon in peril, and then capped on killers very easily thanks to her intrinsic, obviously the most important part, and then the rest of her slots were just used for some bulk for the damage over time to not be a risk. But she's all capped on things very easily, and she's using my die card. So that was the actual team. And again, worked at EX16, had Spear because Esther upgraded in the meantime. Now for the third time, goodbye, hopefully for the last time this time.